this back up. There we go. All right. So, okay, NK is perpendicular to KL. NM is perpendicular to KL. So that means there's right angles at K. All right. And there's right angles at M. I put them on both sides because I don't know which triangles I'm going to try to prove yet. Now, LN is obviously a shared side, so I would put that in. And then they tell me KL is congruent to LM. All right. That tells me which triangle I'm going to prove congruent, the bottom ones. Everybody good with that? All right. So NKP, though, is congruent to NMJ. Uh-oh. Well, that means I'm going to use one pair to do the other. So I'll start with what I give us, which is NK is perpendicular to KL. NM is perpendicular to ML. And KL is congruent to LN. Because it is given to you. All right. Then we included LN is congruent to LN by the reflexive property. All right. Okay. So there's the right angle, there's the hypotenuse, there's the leg that allows me to say the triangles are congruent. The triangle NKL congruent to triangle NML by hypotenuse leg theorem. Okay. So now I got to go to work. In those triangles, and I'm trying to prove these are congruent. All right. So these are intersecting lines, so those are going to be verticals, which means I just need a side. I have two angles, I just need a side. Okay? Now, the one thing I did miss, though, from this one is saying not necessarily that those are congruent, but that they're right angles. I got to go back and angle NKL and angle NML are right angles. All right, definition of perpendicular lines. I do need to include that. All right, that is part of that triangle, part of that triangle, so I'm going to use that. So NK is congruent to NM by the 5 magic letters, CPCTC. All right. Angle PNK is congruent to angle JNM. Vertical angle property. All things we've done all year, you just got to recall them. Okay. All right. Now, I'm not going to use hypotenuse leg because it's 2 angles and a side. So it's angle, side, angle. Well, how do I say these angles are congruent? The easiest way to do that is angle NKP, congruent to angle NMJ. Because they form linear pairs, making them supplements, and we fall back to our old reliable congruent supplements theorem. All right. And I can then say triangle NKP congruent to triangle NMJ by angle, side, angle. Any issues with anything at all? right, next up we got circle T, which means we have radii. So those are going to be congruent by property of a circle, definition of a circle. All radii are congruent. TU is congruent to YW, so those are going to be our right angles. And then UT is going to be, of course, a shared side. The radii are the hypotenuses. The shared side is the leg. That allows us to do hypotenuse leg. The circle T, TU is perpendicular to WV. Given. All right. So since it's circle T, we'll go TW, it's congruent to TV. All radii of a circle are congruent, is the most concise way of saying it. TU is congruent to TU by our friend the reflexive property. All right. Angles TUW and TUV are right angles. Definition of perpendicular lines. All right. And thus we can say triangle TUW is congruent to triangle TUV by hypotenuse leg theorem. All right. All right. So basically the priorities you want to give are finding the right angle. All right. Using most likely perpendicular lines more often than not, or whatever else they can tell you. All right. Using the other piece of information, for example, the shared side. Documenting the definition of the right angle and then hypotenuse. All right. So now we got rectangle BCDE. A rectangle, ladies and gentlemen, is a quadrilateral that is equiangular. All right, this is a nice preview of our next chapter, chapter 6, which means these angles are right angles. Okay. It says angle DBF is congruent to angle DFB. So there we go. All right. Now, you will not have this for the quiz. However, properties of a rectangle say opposite sides are congruent. Okay, what you do need to know for the quiz is those angles being congruent makes the triangle a friend isosceles. That means those two legs are going to be congruent. At that point, we can then say those two triangles on the outside are congruent by a hypotenuse leg. We're trying to prove D is the midpoint of CE. So we need to prove these segments are congruent. That's going to be CPCTC. And then we'll end it up with the following proof. So, all right, I'm going to come down here where there's space and write it out. Rectangle BCDE. Given. Okay. Angle C, angle E are right angles. All right, angle C and E are right angles. Definition of rectangle. Again, you won't have to do that for Monday, but you will need that when we go into chapter 6. All right. BC congruent to EF. That's a property of a rectangle. All right. The part you do need to know for Monday, well, if angle DBF congruent to angle DFB because it is given. That means DB congruent to DF, isosceles triangle property. All right. Triangle BCD congruent to triangle FED, making sure I have it in the right angle. Hypotenuse leg theorem. To say D is the midpoint of CE. I gave a little space because I'm going to need something in between. Definition of midpoint. That guides me to say that CD congruent to DE by CPCTC. All right. All right. So given WY is congruent to XZ. All right, I'm going to sketch them out separately because this is an overlapping triangle example where ZY is the shared side. And then they tell me WY is congruent to XZ. And then they tell me that's perpendicular, so that's a right angle. That's perpendicular, so that's a right angle. Seems like a shining example of hypotenuse leg to me, so I'm good to go from that. All right, so WY is congruent to XZ. WZ is perpendicular to ZY, and you can write this beneath, it's up to you. You don't have to put it right underneath. XY is perpendicular to ZY, all of which is given. All right. From there, we have a couple things. Number one, angle Z and angle Y are right angles. Definition of perpendicular lines. In addition, we have ZY congruent to ZY as the reflexive property. And if we put all that together, we can say that triangle WYZ congruent to triangle XZY, hypotenuse leg theorem. So that's a nice quick one. Right. So to pretty much put a nice little bow on today's lesson, work on the last one. Give an isosceles triangle LNP with base LP, and then perpendicular to LP, prove angle L is congruent to angle P. All right, don't forget, when they give you the isosceles triangle with the base LP and they're telling you not to use isosceles triangle properties, we're going to say LM is congruent to MP by definition of an isosceles triangle. MN is congruent to MN by the shared side. All right, because MN is perpendicular to LP, okay, we're going to put in here that angle MNP, angle MNL are right angles. Definition of perpendicular lines. All right. You can also name them with numbers, of course, just like you have all year. That would be fine. All right. You want to name them 1 and 2 instead of that, that's fine. All right. Triangles are congruent by hypotenuse leg, and then angle L is congruent to angle P by CPC. All right. Any questions about any of those proofs? All right, so tonight's homework. You got a proof where you're just filling in. It says complete paragraph proof, but you're just filling in the missing blanks. All right. Then number 2, look at exercise 1. If the measure of angle RST is 46, what is the measure of angle RUT? Just to review of isosceles triangle properties as we begin to prepare for your quarterly in a couple weeks. Number 3 says to write a flowchart proof. You can write it in any format you want. You're just writing a proof stating why ABD is congruent to CDB. That would most likely end with hypotenuse leg. Number 4, just so you know, it says look at exercise 3. Can you prove the triangles are congruent without using hypotenuse leg theorem? Explain. Basically, what they're asking for is, can you use any of the others? All right. And if you can't, explain why. Okay? That's all you're doing for that. You don't have to redo the proof. On the back, algebra for what values of x and y are the triangles congruent by hypotenuse leg. All right. For 7 and 8, there really isn't any work to be shown. You're just putting your answer. 9 and 10, there's algebraic expressions. So basically, you're just setting things equal to each other. All right. So basically, if you look at 9, you just take each hypotenuse, set it equal to each other. If you look at that, for example, you'll be able to solve for x. You can then plug the x in and solve for y. All right. Same thing with 10. Number 11 says write a paragraph proof. Again, you can write it in any format you'd like. Number 12, what additional information would prove each pair of triangles congruent by the hypotenuse leg theorem? All you're looking to do is add a single statement. All right. And if it's already known to be true, you don't have to add it. For example, in 13, 15, they both have a what? A shared side. So you can assume that's true. All right. So they're looking for whatever else you need. And then 16, are the triangles congruent? Explain why or why not. All right. Before talking about other things, everybody good with the homework? All right. So then, here's the plan. Friday, go over 4.6 practice. Okay. And then review for the quiz. Any remaining time tomorrow, we'll review for the quiz. All right. There won't be any attachments. If there's anything that you need to print, it'll be up in the morning. Monday, you have your quiz. Okay, Monday you have your quiz on law of sines, which is 8.5, and hypotenuse leg, which is 4.6. All right. Now, with regard to that quiz, a couple things. Number 1, during that quiz, your camera will be on. We'll talk more about this tomorrow, but your camera will be on. All right. Normally during class, you don't have to put your camera on, but during your quiz, you will. All right. If you're using your phone as your calculator, that's fine. I'm not doing anything about that. You just have to leave your camera on to make sure people aren't doing anything shady. So your camera will be on during that quiz. Okay? Just letting you know, today, from 1:40 to 2:12, I'll be available for extra help in a Google Meet posted later. From 2:12 to 3 o'clock, I'll be available for extra help. All right? I'll be sitting in my room. That'll be virtual math lab. And then Monday morning, if you want to log on before the quiz. So Monday morning, I'll be here from about 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. If you have any last second questions about the quiz, that quiz will be on Monday. Like I said, your camera will be on while you take the quiz. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right, well, I'll be here for the next 5 minutes. If you have, will area of sines be on it? Yes, it will be on it. So basically, you have, for the quiz itself, All right, for the quiz itself, you're going to have 2 problems. All right, involving law of sines where you're finding either a side or an angle. Okay, you then have 1 problem, that's a word problem involving that. Okay, you have 1 proof, that is absolute fill-in, yes. All right, in 2-column format, it won't be flowchart format because I know how confusing that was the one time we did it. So 1 proof that's fill-in. There's 1 table problem where you're matching that involves hypotenuse leg, and then 1 problem, 2 problems that are quick dealing with area of a triangle. Okay. So yes, the proof will be fill-in. There's area when I'm assuming you're asking what area of the triangle using law of sines on it. Yes. And we're going to walk through tomorrow, like format of it. We'll go through some example problems so you know how to fill stuff in. Good questions. Anybody else? Yes, Cameron, the quiz will still be on Edulastic. What you'll do is you'll open up the Google Meet, and then you'll just go right to Edulastic. It's going to be shorter because of the time frame. You only have the 35 minutes to take it. So basically, you'll have time. If you want to log on, I'll put the Google Meet up early so you can do that early and then jump right on the quiz. So yes, absolutely. But again, we'll talk about that tomorrow as well. I just wanted to give you a heads up that your camera will be on during the quiz. All right. All good? All right. Well, you got a few minutes to enjoy life before you go off to your second period. Again, there'll be plenty of extra help available today after school, both from 1:40 to 2:12 and then 2:12 to 3 o'clock. And then we'll meet again tomorrow to talk about your quiz. All right. Be safe, everybody.